This review is brought to you in part by Ryder's Hobby Shops, where the fun begins. Stop in to one of Ryder's 2 convenient Michigan locations where you'll find a full range of the latest hobby products, supplies, parts, tools, and paint. This review covers the 2013 Camaro ZL1. It's a 125 scale kit from Revell, number 4370. It's aimed at intermediate skill builders because of the large decals, but it's a simple glue kit that's just right for the beginner with lots of potential for styling details too. Now, the first Camaros went on sale in September of 1966, and it was designed as a competing model to the Ford Mustang. But the Camaro was more refined than its competition, but it still had plenty of power. Now, the 2013 ZL1 Camaro included a 6.2-liter LSA supercharged V8, producing 580 horsepower. Now, that's the same motor that was used in the Cadillac CTS-V and made it the fastest production Camaro up to that point. Now, this review covers the release, and it was a repackaged version of the pre-painted kit that came out earlier, but includes a new hood and tire options. Now, it only has 60 parts, molded in white, chrome, clear, and clear red, with rubber tires and metal axles. And this simplistic build is more geared to the beginning modeler that's able to paint and glue, but it's not entirely ready for a fully detailed kit, but still, it lends itself to some nice detailing. When you're done, it's about 7.5 inches long, 3¼ inches wide, and 2¼ inches high. Here are the decals for the kit. As you can see, there's a lot of great body and scripting decals here. The register is great and the colors are nice. The large body stripes are in 2 different colors to, just about complement any paint. And also the custom hood and striping decals that you can use for those versions. Now, there's just a small carrier around the decals, and they come off easily and they set pretty quickly. But those large decals, you'll probably need to use some setting solution to put those on the body and conform to the contours. We'll start with the engine for construction, and you can take these parts out of the kit and clean them up. Now, the instructions for the kit are at the end of the review if you need some clarification on placement, etc. But we show you the engine here put together. We use tube glued for most of the construction, but sometimes we'll use some CA glue, super glue for fragile parts, and white glue for windows. Now, there's some copyright script on the chassis that you can sand off. You may need to use a hobby knife to scrape off the lettering, but it will paint over once you sand it out. And we're going to put this together along with, of course, the exhaust, and we're going to put the radiator and the front lower pan in place there on the chassis and paint the whole thing flat black. And you can go back across that and use some gloss black and metallics to highlight some of the parts and give it a little depth. Paint the exhaust a steel color with aluminum mufflers, and then install those into place. There are positive glue receivers there, and put that into place now. Look for the motor mounts and a place where the motor will contact those, and scrape the paint off. You need to do that so that the glue will stick to the plastic, and install the motor now. We'll work on the interior now and assemble the seats. They're 2-piece, fronts and back halves, and kind of clean up the seams. Now paint the seats, door panels, and the interior flat black. And the brake booster is black, or semi-gloss black, and the reservoir is left as a white. Now give the interior some color, and I used some gloss black and highlighted the center of the seats and the door. Next, I added some flocking, and you can get that from hobby stores or craft shops. It makes for a more realistic looking carpeting, and you can also use embossing powders for those. But I mixed some gray and some black to give it a little variation, and it looks much more realistic that way. You just use a little white glue that's thinned out and paint the areas you want to cover with that. And then you just shake some down through a sieve, and then once it's set, you can just dump off the excess, and there you go. You've got carpeting in your model car. Here's an optional idea. A lot of people put custom mats in their cars, especially sports cars. And I just found some images online, printed them out on some paper, sized them up. They're about an inch tall, the images, and you can then put them on a piece of matte paper or even a plastic stock, cut them out, and there you go. You've got custom floor mats for your custom model car. Now we'll go ahead and put the door panels into place. You can see the gloss black inserts there to give off a little bit of variation, and the interior looks pretty nice. There's also decals that go into the interior, so don't forget those, as well as the engine and engine bay parts. In fact, 16 decal goes on the brake booster, and then that gets installed now as well. Moving on to the dash, we're going to paint that flat black, but the top of it is painted a gloss black, and the wheel is a gloss black. Now decals 1, 2, and 3, they're instruments, and you install those into position there. As you see, they're numbered, and number 7 goes on the wheel right there in the center. Scrape the paint off the contact points and go ahead and install the steering column to the dash, and then the dash into the receivers on the interior box. Next we'll add the interior bucket to the chassis, so look for the glue points there, scrape the paint off and glue that into position, and then add the support bar to the shock towers, and they are black as well. We'll work on the wheel assemblies next, and there's an option between stock and custom wheels. And I used a little light sandpaper, about a 220 grit, to press and roll the tires tread on those to kind of rough them up and give them a worn look. Now you install the tires onto the rims, and there's small and large tires, so make sure that you put the right tires on the right rims and location. Of course, the larger tires go in the rear. Get the brake rotors out of the kit and clean those up, and then we're going to paint the rotors aluminum, and the calipers are red, and decal number 12 goes on each caliper. Now the rear brakes have taller hubs, and those are flat black. And next we'll glue the calipers into place, the whole brakes and calipers. Now notice the front of the car here is to the right, the arrow's pointing that direction, and the calipers on those brakes go towards the back side of that. These cool wheels in place here, as you see, just connect those with the metal axles. You've got a really nice looking rolling chassis, as you can see. And if you take a look here, we'll show you the underside of that. And here's how the underbody of your vehicle will look at this point. And you noticed, of course, that the metal axles were used to actually, connect the two wheels, and that goes through the body at the appropriate points. But you can see here the red arrows will show you where those axles are after you get this installed, just so that you know where their position is. And now you make a choice between the stock hood there on the left and the custom hood. I actually like the looks of the stock hood with the louvers in it, so that's the one I chose. Clean it up and get it ready. Now we'll get the hood out along with the front fascia and the mirrors. You can glue the mirrors into place on the body and then go ahead and clean up the parting lines on the fenders. You'll see one on the C pillar there too, and then coming down from the windshield A pillar. And clean those up to your liking and get them ready for paint. It's always a good idea actually to wash these pieces in some mild soap and warm water, and then let it dry before you paint. When the basic body is ready, go ahead and give it a couple of light coats of primer inside and out, and then set it aside to dry. Once dry, you'll want to do a little wet sanding with some like 800 to 1000 grit sandpaper, and get that all smoothed out for final paint. This is the paint and color that I used for my model. It's a very vibrant gold paint, comes stemming from the Lamborghini, so you can expect it to be pretty special. But it's great paint. It flows easily. It's airbrush paint, and it dries pretty quickly for use right after that. Also requires a clear coat. This is a dull flat paint when it's first sprayed the color coats, then a clear coat later on. Now it's time to add some decals, and for this kit I liked the color so much that I didn't want to disturb it any more than necessary. So I used the carbon fiber decals for the hood, and that's it for decal body stripes that I used for this model. But it's up to you. The full body stripes look pretty good too. You're just gonna make sure that you use some probably setting solution where you need to cover body contours to make sure they nestle down onto the body. Now we're going to do some detailing with the window glass. Actually, the frosted part you see there, that gets painted a flat black, including the visors and console. And then I used some Alclad paint called Transparent Smoke to add some tinting to the window, main window area. And then you see there are little edges there where you'll paint the black surround onto the window edges. And that can be done a number of ways: tape or freehand, or just leave them blank if you want. But they should be detailed in some black edging, as you see here. And then we're going to install that. But before we put that into place, I'm going to give the windows a little crisper look. I'm going to add some floor care from Pledge. That's what it was called at the time. And we're going to let that drain off after we dunk it in a vat of that floor care polish, and then wick off any excess and let it dry. It actually makes the windows a little crisper and clearer. Next, locate these parts out of the kit box, and we're going to paint the front end a satin black. Install the headlight and the fog light lenses with some white glue, although they kind of just snap in, and then the bezels into the front end. Now install the front end into the body with some regular tube glue. Make sure that you scrape off any chrome from contact points though, or it won't stick. Now install that into the body, as I mentioned, and add the taillights to the back end, and paint the blinkers on the headlight lenses transparent yellow. Now we'll mate the body to the chassis, and starting at the rear, just kind of slide the chassis into the body, and then that's to the left, and you see the arrow. Then you'll just kind of shoehorn it down into place by spreading the body sides out, and once you get it into position, it should just snap into position and stay there. You probably won't even need glue for that. With the chassis in position, make sure the motor comes up through and is positioned properly in the center, and then go ahead and detail the parts. You can see some of them are painted a little glossies, and some of the appointments are done with the little silver paint, etc., and add all the additional parts to the engine bay. With the decals dry on the scoop there, go ahead and add the hood to your assembly, and the front end portion of the build is completed. Continuing with my customization, I decided to add a custom license plate tag to my model, and there's a website called acme.com. It's license maker, and you can use it to create just about any custom plate that you want for any state. It's a nice little website feature, and I used it to add a couple of decals to complement my floor mats. And even only with 60 pieces in the kit, you'll have a full set of tires and wheels, an optional hood, and some side view mirrors to put into your parts stash. Well, there you have it. Your model kit is done, and you put a nice paint job on it and stripe it the way you like. You're going to have a real head turner for your shelf, and you can also do some customization to it, like I showed with the floor mats, etc., and the pieces that go into the detailing of the interior, as well as the custom license plates, just to add some really nice customized touches to your kit. And if I were you, I'd buy one and put it on my shelf. We hope you like this step-by-step premium model kit review, and so that you don't miss any more, please subscribe to our YouTube channel. You can do that by clicking on the icon in the lower right of any of our reviews. And you can find us on Facebook or our website, rightonreplicas.com. Thanks.